everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing my favorite books that I read in the year of 2021. I can't believe I am already discussing my favorite books of this year. This year was a bit off, I think, with everything in the circumstances of last year and this year. I read more books last year than I did this year, and I think I ended up burning myself out. That doesn't mean that I didn't read any good books. I read a lot of books that I gave 4 or 5 stars to. I'll display those somewhere. The thing is just they were rated so high, but I don't have anything to say about them. They were just really, really good. They weren't necessarily my favorites. I just enjoyed reading them. So I only have 6 books that I am going to be discussing for this year's video, which feels a bit weird. So here's my discussion of my favorite books that I read in the year 2021 in the order that I read them, not my ranking of my favorites. Once again, if you saw last year's video, I didn't have a copy of every single book that I wanted to discuss, so I held up a blank book. So you get to see my reading journal as I discuss the books that I don't have copies for. So the first favorite of the year is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This one is a bit hard to discuss because people already know that it is a well-written book. It's considered one of the greats. I actually read it for my 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime poster, so it's sort of famous for being good, so there's not a lot of new things I can say about it, but I wanted to discuss. So for those of you who don't know, The Bell Jar is about a character named Esther as she is starting her young adult life and slowly starts to succumb to her own mental issues. The book is incredibly well written. It describes struggles with mental illness so viscerally, so realistically. You can tell that these feelings have been felt and they are pushing her down. I thought that it was a fantastic read, but of course I would not recommend this book lightly because of its semi-autobiographical nature due to what happened to Sylvia Plath. So I would only recommend it if you are comfortable getting into that mindset. If you struggle with suicidal ideation or any other mental issues, I might pass on it. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but I found a lot in this book relatable, and I thought it was just beautiful, and I'm glad that the poster led me to eventually reading the book. So that was my first favorite of the year. The next book I want to talk about is actually difficult for me to talk about in the completely opposite way, because if I start going on about this book, I go into a complete rabid frenzy, and you need to hold me back. And you need to, like, stop me because I just won't shut up about how good this book is, and I cannot recommend it enough. I've talked about it in like 152 videos on this channel already, so obviously my second favorite book that I read in 2021 is Bunny by Mona Awad. This book is about a character named Samantha. She is in a university master's program for writing, and all of the other girls in her class, it's a very small class, it's like 6, are these freaks who are like a clique, and they call themselves Bunny, and they're super, super weird, and they slowly draw Samantha into their world and what they're capable of, and it's just insane. It is so good, so unique, so well written. I normally don't like overly quirky language, but this I was able to get into very quickly. I love the slow descent of the bunnies taking her in and controlling her and the things that they're able to do, and the way that it's all tied into their struggles with writing and trying to be a unique person in their writing. It's very, very interesting. It's just so weird. It's so good. It's just morbid fairy tale. Please read it. Please read it. Have you heard me recommend it enough? Please read it. Please read it. Please read it. Please. My third favorite book that I read in the year of 2021 was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I already know that this book is one of the most talked about in the entire history of the online book community. It is considered top-notch. Every single booktuber, bookstagrammer, book talker, etc. has gushed and gushed about this book. In my mind, that meant that it was incredibly overhyped, and I skipped out on it for years, because I didn't want to tackle all that. But Someone said that it was a very, very subtle Frankenstein retelling, and I had to go see what that was all about. So this year, I finally read it. That meant I went into this book with incredibly low expectations. I did not want to disappoint myself by hearing about all this hype about it and realizing that it wasn't as great as it was. But I was wrong. The first third of this book is one of the greatest pieces of writing I've ever read in my entire life. So, for those of you who still might not know, despite the years of popularity, Vicious by V.E. Schwab is a dark, supernatural superhero book, and it is about two characters, a hero named Eli and a villain named Victor. And the first book is about them getting their superpowers and then eventually growing to become enemies because of it. The first third of this book, them in university getting their final projects, them turning themselves into superheroes, and them gradually growing apart, their dynamic, oh my god. That was the best third of a book that I have ever read. I was going insane. I couldn't believe that it was actually that good. Their dynamic is perfect and twisted and obsessive, and both of them have such different ideologies. Like, come on with the Charles and Eric from X-Men with the Frankenstein and the creature. It's so good. That dynamic is incredibly good. I was hooked. But then, the second and final third of the book, it dwindled. It wasn't as great as I thought it would be. I didn't like the plot line, the addition of Sydney, the little girl. I didn't like how they were separated and the entire book was a build up to them meeting and then the meeting fell flat. I didn't like that part at all because I love a book in a university setting, so I wanted them to be in that university setting the entire time. But they grew up and split off, and Victor went to prison and Eli went his way, and it wasn't that great. And I'm also less about action, and the other part of the book was very, very action based. So unfortunately, it did weaken my utter devotion to the book. I wish the entire book was just that first third. But I'm still going to recommend it as a favorite of the year because I was that hooked from the first third. Unfortunately, it has left me very hesitant on picking up the sequel, because what if the sequel doesn't have any part like the first third was? What if I'm left hanging with that incredible beginning of this story and then I have nothing for the rest of it? So I'm very hesitant in reading the sequel. I'm still waiting to pick up the sequel because I just don't want to blow it, you know? But Vicious by V.E. Schwab, I do have to consider a favorite, unfortunately, because the beginning of it was way too good. So people who are overhyping this book, I totally get it. I just wish that the beginning was the entire book, because the dynamic between Victor and Eli was insane. And the Frankenstein vibes, the university vibes, I want more of that. I don't want the superhero part. That's the entire point of the book. Oh my god. So yes, third favorite of the year. My fourth favorite read that I read in the year 2021 was The House of the Vampire by George Sylvester Viereck. Viereck? He's dead, who cares? This story is unfortunately very fantastic. It is considered one of the first stories about a psychic vampire, and it is about this man who meets an older gentleman, and he's very interested in the art that he does. I believe it's writing, and he eventually realizes that he's getting his life and therefore his work sucked away from the psychic vampire who's stealing it. My leg fell asleep. Oh god, it's horrible. It's horrible. I hate being a full-grown adult. Is this what 25 is? This book is incredibly well written. It is so rich with the metaphor that it is trying to do, the absorption of someone's work and their identity and how they feel about their work and the part of themselves they put into their work. I realize Bunny is kind of like that too. Maybe I'm just super into that metaphor. But anyway, this is a fantastic psychic vampire story compared to the other psychic vampire story that I read very recently, which was Blood of the Vampire by Florence Marriott. I do prefer this one. I think it's because it is shorter and more packed with the stuff that it wanted to do. Meanwhile, the other book was very Jane Austen-esque in enrapturing itself in English society, and I did like that aspect as well. They were both fantastic psychic vampire stories. The other one I had a lot of issues with, but this one I really, really liked. It was a fantastic read. The writing was excellent. The prose was well written. I was very unsettled, actually, by the descriptions of his mind being penetrated and all of that. And it had a lot of sort of queer themes. I mean queer both in the old sense of the term, which is weird, and the newer sense of the term. But unfortunately, no, I can't leave it at that, because the author decided to be a gross, sick anti-Semite, a very active, toxic anti-Semite. Yuck. God damn it, why can't anything be good? Why does it always have to be tarnished by fucking anti-Semitism? So unfortunately, again, I can't praise this too heavily because I don't want that harmful rhetoric being praised. So I unfortunately need to do more research on how to tackle this. I did like the story a lot, but I can't stand the personal life of the goddamn author or his views. They're sick and vile, and I don't condone that. So, before I can discuss this book any further, I want to add it to my vampire recommendation series. I will be doing more research. I promise. I have a book. I have a book ready to do my research on. So, a book that was unfortunately a favorite, The House of the Vampire. Okay, book number 5. We're gonna be more positive. It's another vampire short story. This one's way better. I can recommend it to every single person. It is very good. Trust me, nothing gross about it. Bunnicula by James and Deborah Howe. Why yes, I am putting a children's book about a vampire bunny on my favorites list this year. Do you even know me at all? It is a bunny and a vampire. That is who I am as a person. You're shocked by this? You're shocked? Ugh, you don't know me at all. This book is incredibly wholesome and incredibly sweet. The book is about a family finding a bunny at the movie theater, naming it Bunnicula, and then the cat thinks that the bunny is a vampire, and the dog has to deal with both the cat and Bunnicula. This book is incredibly sweet because eventually the dog begins to sympathize with the bunny, and they develop this incredibly sweet, adorable relationship, and all the antics they get into are pretty funny. I really enjoyed the positive depiction of vampires, or people who are different, you know, that metaphor, because they just grow to accept that the bunny is really weird, and he sucks the juice out of vegetables, and he's just a weird, spooky, nocturnal bunny. And I loved all the vampire references in this, and it was just so cute and so funny and so sweet and so wholesome. And look at the cover! Look at Bunnicula! Look at the baby! Read Bunnicula! It's really short. It's really sweet. It's a whole series. There's a whole bunch of antics they get into. Read Bunnicula. It's cute. Holy crap. We're already at my final favorite read of 2021. That's crazy. Like I said, I've read 60-something books, but only 6 I wanted to talk about in this video, so weird. Another thing, this is the 3rd book that has bunny in the title. What the hell? This is just who I am now. I'm the vampire bunny girl. Let's make that clear. I'm the vampire bunny girl. So my final favorite for this video is Down the Rabbit Hole by Holly Madison. So this is an autobiography about the life of Holly Madison, a former Playboy bunny who was Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, first one of 8 and then eventually one of 3, as she lived her life in the very stifling Playboy mansion, had her reality show The Girls Next Door in the mid-2000s, how she eventually broke out of the mansion and breaking up with Hugh Hefner, immediately getting with another very toxic celebrity, and finally leaving him and introducing her new life as a Las Vegas showgirl. Now, I have seen many very harsh criticisms of this book. People view her voice as very self-victimizing, very, oh, woe is me, I couldn't help myself in the mansion, I was being tortured, I couldn't control anything, I was just a sweet little baby, innocent. But that's not what it is, I feel. She is fashioning a character for herself, that being she was too young and naive to sort of see the true toxicity of what was going on in her relationship with Hugh Hefner, and how controlling he was as a man, and how his rules at the mansion were very stifling. I can understand that. She's telling her own perspective here. Another criticism is people think she has a very negative view of both women and sex work. I can see a few comments, but I have seen in her recent interviews and videos on YouTube that she does regret some of the language she uses, and she is trying to grow as a person. But these are her views of people she personally knew and how they treated her and assumed things about her. So of course she's going to villainize a lot of the women she interacted with. It was a very toxic environment, a very competitive environment she was forced into. So the lifestyle that she had lived for almost a decade caused her to just constantly think she had to compete with women, and it's very sad. And I hope she understands now that she doesn't. And so many people who are criticizing her, at least on Goodreads, are using horrible misogynist language themselves, so they're just calling her a horrible slut bitch by saying that she's calling other women a slut bitch. People don't make any sense. Feminism is a complicated goddamn thing and no one knows how to use it properly. Ugh. This is the book people wanted. People wanted a brutal, honest tell-all about how the mansion sucked and how Hugh Hefner sucked. And they get it, and they mock her for her ideas. Nobody can win in this situation, I guess. Playboy sucks, Hugh Hefner sucks, we all know this. Let's stop being mean to the people who were tortured under that system. Thank you. I also think it helped that I listened to the audiobook rather than reading the words and reading them in my own tone in my head. Holly read the book herself, and she delivers it in a very performative way. So I didn't see it as a very, oh, woe is me, my poor life. She just read it as it was. It was also interesting hearing her do the impressions of the people she was referring to. She actually did pretty good, all things considered. So if you're interested in hearing about the Playboy Mansion in the mid-2000s, or if you've watched the show Girls Next Door, I would recommend this book. I also plan to read Isabella St. James's book, Bunny Tales, and I've already read Kendra Wilkinson's book, Straight Onto Home. It's a baseball reference. I don't understand sports. Anyway, I thought Kendra's book was very disappointing. I can acknowledge that her life and her struggles are a very important thing to describe, and I enjoyed reading that part, but her view and opinion of Hugh Hefner is a bit disappointing. She ass kisses him. I don't like that. So I do plan to read more books in this perspective and hopefully get a well-rounded opinion on what was going on rather than just taking Holly's word as is. So, I recommend Down the Rabbit Hole by Holly Madison. That's it. That's all of my favorite books that I read in the year 2021. I'm still doing a lot of my reading this month, so hopefully one of them doesn't sneak in and become the best book. Otherwise, I'm shit out of luck. Thank you so much for watching me all year, or if this is your first video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I have more videos like this. I do reading vlogs every month. I do fun random videos on the side. Who knows what I'll do in 2022? So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. Bunny.